All right, welcome back to Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I made the comment early in the show that I think the argument could be made that Brent Musburger has had the greatest career of any sports broadcaster of all time. I mean, we're talking going back to 1973 when he starts at CBS Sports, right? Was one of the original members and the primary host of the NFL Today. The basketball tournament, Super Bowls, NBA Finals, World Series, U.S. Open tennis, the Masters, NASCAR, World Cup, Belmont Stakes, horse racing, you name it. This guy has done it. And it is a pleasure and an honor to be joined by the great Brent Musburger, who joins us from his home in Montana. He was born and raised, or not born, but was raised in Montana. And Brent, how is retirement treating you, young man?
I stay retired for exactly one more week, and then I fly down to Las Vegas, and Brent Musburger's Countdown to Kickoff, sponsored by DraftKings, goes up on the air on the opening Sunday of the listen, retirement was great. I loved hanging out with listen, my favorite experience of the summer, I went to 2 minor league baseball games, one up in Kalispell and one the other night up in Missoula. They're called the Paddleheads. And you being a great baseball guy, you know how much fun they have at minor league baseball games. I mean, I was the guest of the sponsor of the home run hitter of the night, and the $5 beer, you get to buy it for $1 if he hits a home run. He singled. They lowered the price for a glass of beer to $4. I was one of the first in line. You know what I'm saying?
I believe me, Brent. I know what you're saying. You know, it's funny you bring that up because I have been doing a show all year long. I don't know if you know this or not, but I've been doing a show all year long on the Pioneer League. And so I've had a chance to visit Missoula, the Paddleheads there. Jason Newman's at probably the home run hitter you're talking about because he set an all-time record this year. And I went to Great Falls, and I went to Billings, Montana. And that's a phenomenal league. Phenomenal league. Tell me about what you're doing in Vegas, because you started your company there a number of years ago. You eventually sold it, as you just mentioned, to DraftKings. But what's your role now? What are you doing in Vegas?
Well, I will do the show Countdown to Kickoff on Sundays, and then I'll spend days as a guest of some of the others. It's VSIN, the Vegas Stats and Information Network, and the growth, Tom, of that has been phenomenal. When we started it, and believe me, it was my nephew, Brian, who he was the main force behind the development of VSIN. But remember, the only state where there was really betting on sports going on was in Nevada. But Brian thought there was going to be great growth because there was too much illegal money being bet off. And, of course, the Supreme Court legalized it for the state of New Jersey, and we've gone from there. I think, did you tell me that Ohio will start at the first of the year with legalized sports betting? Is that what you told me?
Yeah, and I've read, I don't know if this is true or not, but I've read that of all the states that either have already legalized sports gambling or are about to by the start of 2023, that Ohio, they're expecting to bring in the biggest numbers of any state so far. I don't know if that's true or not, but yes, that's when we start here.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be one of the biggest. It's always hard for anybody to overcome the state of New York because of population. Right now, New York and New Jersey are at the top of the list, and Nevada comes in at a distant third. But Ohio will be huge. It will be bigger than Nevada because of the interest in sports. I mean, imagine how many millions of dollars are going to be bet on this week's Notre Dame-Ohio State game being played up in Columbus. The excitement about the Buckeyes, of course, is drawing money coast to coast. Everybody thinks they've got a chance to displace Georgia as the national champion. Obviously, we'll see because Alabama will always be formidable. But you're right. Ohio will be huge because you have those great pro teams. Well, listen, were you Bengals in Cincinnati, when you think about it a year ago, Tom, jumping from last to first in the division. Now, if you go back historically, And John Breach, the son of the former Bengal kicker, did some outstanding research for CBS Sports on this. Believe it or not, almost every year there is a team that jumps from last to first in one of the 8 divisions in the NFL, and he was touting the Ravens this year, and I don't disagree with that. Believe it or not, the Super Bowl hangover, as Bengal fans are about to find out, it's real statistically. When you lose the Super Bowl, there are untold problems that just jump up unexpectedly the following year. You go back over the last few years and look at the teams that lost in the Super Bowl. And so we shall see. The Bengals are going to have their hands full. They open with Pittsburgh, as you know, at home. I'm a 6.5-point favorite. That's a lot of points in a division game to give the Steelers. The Steelers still have some good defensive personnel. We have to wait and see if Mitch Trubisky is really an improved quarterback, as the gossip was coming out of Buffalo, where he was a backup last year. And maybe Coach DeBoer was able to coach him up a little bit. We shall see.
I want to ask you a little bit, Brent, about gambling and how it is all of a sudden almost an about face overnight in regard to its quote-unquote acceptance, if you will, in professional sports. Somebody asked me this question when I was a guest on a show the other day. During my 25 years at Fox announcing the NFL, did anyone at Fox ever say to me, hey, look, you can't get into those numbers and the over-under, or somebody just covered the spread and blah, blah, blah? You, from time to time, would do those kinds of things. And I think everybody loved it because it was just laying it out there what everybody and his brother is thinking. I recall, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't have to get into details of the game, but I think you were doing an Ohio Northwestern game, Northwestern, your alma mater. Something crazy happened at the end, and it led to the over-under or somebody covering the spread. You made a comment about it. Point I'm getting at now is, have you always been interested in the gaming part of sports, or is that just something that you saw as a business opportunity that now has led for you what it is?
No, I think I was always interested, Tom. From my days with Jimmy the Greek on the NFL Today, I was a bit of a novice. I had traveled as a baseball writer in Chicago and then as a columnist. Late in the season, they would always assign me to the best race coming down the stretch, and many times it was the Dodgers were involved with Don Drysdale, Sandy Koufax, and that great team going forward. But I would always stop in Las Vegas on the way into Los Angeles. And I was a novice, certainly no details like I do now, but I would always go into the old books, and they weren't part of the casinos back in the day. And that's why Jimmy the Greek first back in the 60s. And he educated me on what I just thought, especially at the professional level. I think there's a difference between professional and college, and I think people be aware of that it was a driving force. The National Football League wouldn't admit it, and obviously when you look around and you see all of the ads now for the different gaming companies, including DraftKings, you know how big an opportunity it was for the NFL to cash in on commercials. But they were denying how big it was behind the growth of the National Football League. And it's not necessarily just point spreads. It was office pools, people picking winners every week. And I thought, this is a big part of this game, whether or not they want to admit it or not. And so most of the time when I would refer to that at networks, they would look the other way. However, there was a guy at CBS Sports at the back in the day, and we would always be on the scene at the NFC Championship game, because CBS covered the NFC back in that era of the NFL Today. And on the championship, I would tell the Greek at halftime, I would say, Jimmy, call your friends in Las Vegas and get me the spreads on what would be the Super Bowl. Now, if the AFC had gone first, it was going to be easy because we had the winner. But I said, if they go second, give me the spread on both those teams. And when I went off the air, I would always this was the spread of the Super Bowl. Not that everybody in America was going to bet on it, but everybody in America was always interested in that number. Mm-hmm. What do the numbers people think? And I always knew I would get a call on Monday, and Pilson would say, you can't do that, He was always just scared of the phone call from the NFL. I would apologize. Gee, I forgot. And, of course, the next year I would do it all over again. That's, it led to me having problems with executives from time to time. But I always thought, listen, you don't know what you're talking about, and you're scared of your shadow, and you should stand up. Pete Rozelle, now this is interesting because Jimmy the Greek and Pete and I, along with Bob Wussler, who preceded Pilsen and was a great head, he's the one who. Listen, Bob Wussler is the guy who brought in Miss America, Phyllis George. She was the most prominent early woman in television. That she preceded all of these sideline gals. And Jimmy the Greek, he brought in the second year of the show. But anyway, we had a meeting, and it went very well. I knew that Pete Rozelle understood what the hell was going on because I always found him at the racetrack, and he never missed a Kentucky Derby. And anybody who goes to racetracks understands numbers, knows how important it is. So this is going to be fine. So we went to the meeting, and it was clear that he approved of Jimmy the Greek being on the NFL. They had no problem. But then at the end, he said, I'm going to ask you guys for one favor. Now, when the commissioner says favor, I knew, here comes the order. What's it going to be? He said, listen, I'd prefer that you guys didn't say +3, -10, +7 in your discussion of the various games. And so, oh, yeah, sure. Of course, Commissioner. No problem. But on the way back, we said, now what the hell are we going to do? And that's how we developed the Jimmy the Greek board, and we would check off. And if the Greek had an advantage of about 4 or 5 check marks, you know that he was solidly behind that team. So that obviously has led to the growth. And I think it's healthy. Now, full disclosure, and I tell everybody, especially youngsters, be careful. If you think you are year in and year out going to beat those numbers, you are crazy, okay? You're not going to do it. I know only a handful of people who have ever come close to making a good living out of betting on sports. If you want to do it for entertainment and you've got some dollars that you can afford, go ahead and do it. But if you think you're going to be the guy who breaks the bank with the bookmakers and the computers and these numbers, you're not going to. I'll give you an example. A week ago, I played Northwestern over in Dublin in that game against Nebraska because we have a guy, Steve Makinen, ability index, and it goes about, returning coaches, head coaches, coordinators, quarterbacks, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, et cetera, and his stability index actually made Northwestern a team to bet on against Nebraska. So look, I was feeling like I was the smartest guy in the world, so I won it. But last night I came back getting the 3.5 points on Purdue at home. I thought, well, that's decent against Penn State, even though the Nittany Lions have dominated. Well, Nittany Lions win that game by 4. So I'm 1-1 on the season so far. And I just want everybody to know that those numbers are good. I mean, those guys have a reason for putting it up. You're going to give a couple of touchdowns if you want the Buckeyes this week against Notre Dame.
Yeah.
The money's going to come in on the Buckeyes. There's no doubt about it. Now, just to tell everybody out there, the stability rating does favor the Buckeyes, okay? There's a lot of change at Notre Dame. New coach, so that's 0 on the head coach. New quarterback, so that's 0 there on the quarterback. Whereas over on the other side, you've got the Buckeyes with 8 points already, returning head coach, returning quarterback. So those are the things. Do it for recreation. Do it. You can get in trouble. A gambling addiction is a very difficult addiction to overcome, and you hurt the people around you. So I always, Tom, warn people about that.
Brent, I want to ask you a couple things about your career. Did you coin the term March Madness?
Yeah, now I'll tell you how that came about, and it had nothing to do with the college tournament. To tell you the truth.
You're kidding.
I was working in Chicago. Like I said, I was a columnist for the Chicago's America, and there was the college tournament was not nearly as big when I started back in the 60s as a writer. Okay, but the high school basketball tournaments in the various states. I mean, Indiana, legendary, covered that tournament. But downstate Illinois was huge. And there was a Ford dealer in Chicago by the name of Jim Moran, and he bought ads in the Chicago's American, and he called it March Madness. And he would have a special on a sale on certain Ford cars during the downstate high school basketball tournament, and he would always applaud the teams from Chicago. the African American schools were just now becoming prominent in the '60s, and we sent some downstate, down into Champaign, and a couple of them were able to come back with state championships. And Jim Moran, but he always used the title over the ads of March Madness, and so I then went to CBS, and we took the tournament away from NBC. And I was not the play-by-play guy. I was a studio host when it began. And at night, we actually had a board up where I moved cardboard names of teams as they advanced and everything. And we had a couple of late-night great shootouts out west and things. And I just I said, folks, this is madness. This is March Madness. But the term stuck with me coming out of Chicago. Well, so the NCAA, they go to get a copyright on it down the road because everybody started to use it. Mm-hmm. Well, the state of Illinois, the high school state, sued them. And so the attorneys from the NCAA came to me, and I said, listen, let me tell you the truth. I said, if you depose me or you take me to court on a trial, I am going to tell them that it did not come from NCAA basketball. It came from the Illinois State High School basketball tournament. And the attorneys were very nice from the NCAA. They understood completely what the situation was. And so they paid. It was never, as far as I know, it wasn't ever made public. But the NCAA actually paid the State High School Association of Illinois for the term March Madness. But as far as I can tell, it came from Jim Moran, the old card in Chicago. Wow. That's the story of it.
If there was a Hall of Fame designated for just being a writer, you'd be in it. If there was a Hall of Fame designated for a studio host, you'd be the all-timer, number one. If there was a Hall of Fame for being a play-by-play guy in sports, you're in it right at the top of the list. I'm curious, and we haven't spent a lot of time together, but we've crossed, our paths have crossed, especially when you were doing the Raiders games for a couple of years. I'm curious, for a guy who went, and I find this amazing because I was only a play-by-play guy. I did a little bit of studio work and NBC affiliate in Cincinnati when I was getting started, but I am always just amazed by the guys that are able to do the studio at your level, do the play-by-play at your level. Which of those, Brent, at the end of the day, if you were given the same amount of money to do all three, which of those three would you have chosen to do?
Tom, it would depend on how old I was. When I was young and making a name for myself, the studio was great. There's no question about it. But I always knew in the back of my mind that it was going to be time to move down the road. I think the studio belongs to younger announcers. That you can try them out, and you test their knowledge. You see exactly what they know, and then evolve into the booth. Like I did. I would recommend that for almost every broadcaster. I think it is very good, and it teaches you just when you work the studio. You get a chance to listen to a lot of voices, and you get a chance to watch a lot of broadcasts. And you see, for example, now, my main criticism of announcers had nothing to do with play-by-play guys. I mean, for yourself and all the guys who've done games through the years, outstanding. You can't, but analysts talk too much, and they think that every play, you have to break it down and give all these facts and numbers. And no, you don't. They don't realize that since I started, when NFL and all these other games really evolved into the biggest thing on television, people are far more knowledgeable than they think they are. They've been watching these games. And I know that even I will hit that mute button, and it had nothing to do with the play-by-play guys, but I'll hit it because I can see what's going on during the game, and I don't need every play analyzed for me. And so that would be my main criticism. If they were to come to me and say, okay, we want you to offer a course to our announcers, that would be number one. Number two, there's too many numbers.
Yep.
Listen, when I'm watching, Ohtani is my favorite baseball player right now, okay? And when he hits a towering home run out of the ball, they don't care what the exit velocity is. It's a home run.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so you can just lay off some of those numbers. And in that area, play-by-play guys can get carried away with numbers too. They don't realize that the audience out there are interested in certain things. Okay, it's his 30th home run. Certainly interested in that. I am. Speaking of him, Tom, and you're a baseball guy. It is unbelievable what we're watching. Able to go out there and work 6 or 7 innings in a Major League Baseball game. If you ask the pitchers that you've been around, they will tell you how tired they are for a couple of days after that. And this guy shows up the next day as a designated hitter, and he's ripping balls into the seats. I mean, I never thought in my lifetime that I would see anybody that I could compare to Babe Ruth, who, of course, obviously I didn't see, but being a pitcher and then the greatest home run hitter of all time in his era. But this guy's just incredible. And when you watch him in the dugout, when they take the shots of him over there, whether he hits a home run or makes an out, he immediately goes to his iPad and he's studying what the pitcher tried to do to him. So those things I'm interested in the human beings that play the games. And I think especially broadcasters have to be mindful of the female audience. They're interested far more in the people than they are in the numbers. I mean, you go back and chat. I'm not being sexist with that comment. I've seen a lot of research, so I know that.
All right, so I'm going to put you on a spot since you were talking about some of these spreads, because the two producers, Brandon Seho and Casey McAllister, and I, we're picking games every week. We started in college this week, so I'm going to throw 3 of these at you right now, and you tell me what you think. We've already done our picks today. So Ohio State, last we saw, I think it was 16 or 17, favored over Notre Dame. You like the Buckeyes in that one?
Yes, I do. Now, it started at 14 last summer, okay? And the money has come in. And, yes, there are 7 teams out there right now, minus 17. I do like the Buckeyes because of the stability, but I would not make it a 5-star at 17. I would have made it a 5-star. People have to understand there's a huge difference between 14 and 17, okay? And in the summer, if I had made a bet down in Vegas, like in July, I would have definitely made the minus 14 a 5-star. So I do like the Buckeyes.
Okay. Cincinnati. I don't know how much you pay attention to Cincinnati. They had the great run last year.
I love this story. I love the story.
So they're going on the road, and they're playing in Arkansas, and Arkansas is a 6.5-point favorite there. What do you think?
5-star Arkansas.
Really?
Quarterbacks, they're going to really miss their quarterback, okay? And they had great defensive backs.
Yep.
Good wide receivers. And Arkansas is on the rise. And that game is down in Arkansas, Razorbacks.
Okay. The Utah Utes, they had that fascinating game. I mean, what a game. I mean, if you could watch one college football game, just to watch a football game, that Rose Bowl against Ohio State was just unbelievable. They go on the road. A lot of people think they're a college football playoff contender this year. They're going to Florida, and that line, I think, is now at 3.
Well, the stability index of Steve Makinen says go with the Utes, but he also says be careful of the setting down there in games in Gainesville, correct?
Yep. Yes, sir.
He said to be careful. On that one, I think I would pass. The stability, they've got a new coach down there at Florida. Napier had a great reputation, but I would pass on that. Stability-wise, if you want to go with Makinen's theories, and they're very solid and sound, you would go with the Utes. But that's a tough road trip, 12th place to go. I'm passing on that one.
Okay, and the last one I'm going to ask you about is the defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs. This game will be played in Atlanta, Georgia. Number 11, Oregon, going down to Atlanta. Georgia given 17 points. Any feel for that one?
Go for Georgia. 3-star. Not a 5, but a 3 at 17. Stability, obviously, favors the Dogs on that one. Oregon with a coach and someone who is off the Georgia staff, by the way.
Yeah.
So he's going to know a little bit when he goes down in there. But historically, in that kind of a setting, that kind of a situation, the team that he left is going to do very, very well. So I would go with the Dogs at home, no question.
Okay. Brent, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you giving us your time here today. I mean, I could sit, and I know our audience could sit and listen to you talk all day long because there's so many things that we could talk to you about. But I just want to thank you for being so gracious with your time. Safe travels down to Vegas. Best of luck on everything. If DraftKings wants to have you come on our show every week or anybody else over there, you let us know. We're more than willing to make that happen. But all the best, my friend. God bless you and Godspeed on your travels.
Thanks a lot, Tom. Good luck with this show of yours, and certainly we will talk down the road, my friend, as the football season unfolds. And go Buckeyes!
Go Buckeyes is right. All right. I mean, how cool is that, right? That you're getting 3 and 4 and 5-star picks for Brent Musburger. I mean, I got to tell you, I've been lucky to be around for a long time and do a lot of cool things and do a lot of cool events, but I don't know if there's anything that just kind of hit me right there. I don't know if it did you. I mean, Brent Musburger giving you 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star picks on our program. That's really cool.